Hi everyone. I'll share my interview experience of IIM Ahmedabad with you today. So IIM Ahmedabad interview was my last interview, and it was after Bangalore and Calcutta. And just a glimpse of what happened there. My Bangalore interview was a 50-minute long interview. My Calcutta interview was a 5-minute long interview. So Ahmedabad interview at the when I was preparing for it, I had sort of accepted the fact that time doesn't matter, preconceived notions don't matter, and there is no point in thinking about uska 15 minutes hua, so it's good. Mera 30 minutes hua, so it's bad. So this is something which I had realized, and I was just preparing for it as any other person would do. So Ahmedabad interview, it's supposed to be the most comprehensive interview out of all the interviews. They start with, especially for a fresher. I had read about it. I had discussed it with my mentors and seniors. Ahmedabad interview usually begins with a detailed exploration of your academics, of your current affairs, your views on the topics which are happening around the world, proper discussions about your work kicks. If you're a fresher, then about your internships and projects. And it is usually said to be very academic focused. So this is also possibly the case because as a fresher, you don't have very much full-time work experience and you don't know how industry works. And it's sort of their only testing point, academics, to see how rigorous you are or how dedicated and motivated you are. And by academics, I just don't say ki it's all about your CGPA or grades. It's more about how well are you able to recollect those thoughts and present to them to an interview at that point of time in the interview. So my Ahmedabad interview, unlike Bangalore and Calcutta interview, was not given from my home. I had to go to a center wherein there was a big conference room and there was a video call set up there wherein I had to sit on the one end of the table and on the other hand there was a screen, a television screen with the two panelists on the screen. Before the interview starts, you are supposed to reach the center by around 8 a.m. or according to a time slot. I reached there. I have a 40-minute break waiting time wherein everybody is coming, gathering around, sitting down. They share with you the order in which you will have your interviews done. Fortunately, I was the first person in this slot, and I always believe that in interviews it's better to get done as early as possible, especially for a person like me, because that sort of helps me to not read into a lot of things or not discuss a lot about the experiences of other interviewees on the same day, and just go there to the panel without any preconceived notions or expectations. So after 40 minutes, we start with a written assessment, which Ahmedabad is very famous for, the AWT. And it starts, it ends very quickly, 20 minutes, and you're just given a sheet of paper and you have to type in your thoughts in that. And something, yeah, as usual, you can't exceed the limit. You can't ask for another page. You can't scribble outside the lines. There is a set of lines there because they have to scan that sheet and send to the panel at the time. And you have to write in a legible way, a very concise way, and you have to structure your thoughts in a very critical way. After that is done, your interview order is shared. They ask you to wait for 5-10 minutes. Some centers provide you with some snacks. Mine did. Usually nobody eats them early on because there is a sort of stressful environment because all the students or all the interviewees are sitting with you in a conference room and everybody's looking at each other's faces. There are no mobile phones. There is nothing to talk about usually. Nobody prefers to talk about, and I think that's a good thing as well because otherwise it will just create more panic and anxiety among some people. And my name gets called up. I go out, I walk into that room, and I can see that there is a female professor and there is a male professor in his early 30s, I guess, or 40s, maybe. And they're on the screen and they're going through some sheets of paper. And I guess there was some official documents or something, and the male professor was having his breakfast in the video call. So I enter and like, "Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am." They asked me to sit down, and The one thing which I realized after my Bangalore and Calcutta interview is that it's very important to keep a calm face. It's very important to keep a happy face, smiling face, no matter what happens. You have to have that sort of confidence through your face that you will handle anything. And even if you don't know the answer to a question, you will be able to at least try to reach to an answer, or you will put up a good fight. So before asking about how my day was or how my academics are or how my internship was, so just to give an idea, I had prepared through my academics thoroughly. I had prepared through the current affairs, Ukraine war, everything related to that, or some other topics as well, fuel prices, all of these things I had prepared thoroughly, my internships, my projects. And at that point of time, I was sort of, not very modest way, but I was sort of prepared for anything. But the interview turned out to be completely different from my expectations. The first thing that the female professor asked me is, Abhishek, tell me about blogs. What do you know about blogs? And I'm like, okay, this is not, I think in my mind, okay, I don't know about blogs very much. Maybe she's just starting up the conversation. I tell her, I think blogs are this kind of media where people express their this, social media, this and that. She says, okay, tell me about the types of blogs and what hybrid blogging is. And at that point of time, I can't show it on my face, but I am inside my head, I'm thinking, okay, I have heard these names for the first time, types of blogging and hybrid blogging, hybrid blogs. And I can't recollect my thoughts. I can't bluff them. It's very important. This is something which I was told by everyone, that you don't and you should not, and it is inherently wrong to bluff or to lie in front of those professors, because they are very seasoned persons, team of the country. They have been taking interviews for decades now, and they will know if you are trying to make a fool out of them. And probably you'll be making a fool out of yourself if you try to do that. So I very humbly tell her, I don't know this, but this is something which I have talked about in my daily interviews as well, that even if you don't know something, would try to at least put in some effort to show that if you don't know it, but this is what you think it could be. So I told her, ma'am, I don't know about it. I'm very sorry about that. But I think that this could be this could be the types of blogs, or hybrid blogging could be this. And then in the end, I said, again, I'm not very sure about that, but I think that this is the case. And she said, all right, you're wrong on a lot of things, but we'll see later on. And she kept on mute and she sat back like this. And I just had a 1 second thought in my mind. Okay, I have wrecked my interview. This interviewer has stopped asking me questions or interacting with me after a minute itself. Then sir unmutes himself and he asked me, so you're a computer science graduate, right? I'm like, yes, sir, I am. And I prepare myself in the back of mind, okay, academic related questions are incoming or my experience related questions are incoming, but no. His next question is, why are you leaving computer science? And for the next 10 minutes, it's more like a one-sided conversation where he is trying he's motivating me / scolding me for leaving computer science and trying to do an MBA. So he starts speaking things like, kids, like people like you are wasting engineering seats, or people like you will go on to build startups, and you ruin the current economy, you ruin the working class, and this and that, and automation is going to take away jobs. And especially people like you who come from good colleges, you try to get seats everywhere. This is a fight for you. This is again a game of academics for you, and this and that. And for the next 10 minutes, it was a one-sided conversation. But one thing which I was very sure about is I couldn't let my anxiety or stress or my how upset I was at that point, if I was, to show on my face. So all the time I was smiling, I was doing this, and I was like, sir, I agree with you, sir. Maybe there's a bit different, sir. Maybe this is something which I've thought of for a long time. Maybe this is my conviction. Maybe this is that, this is that. And you can't put up either an aggressive face or you can't put up a defensive face. You have to play it very neutral at that point of time. When you are being, later on, I got to realize from after talking to a couple of seniors that this is exactly what a stress interview is. This is a stress test. They're trying to break you down. They're trying to sort of figure you to say out something which might be inappropriate at that time, or maybe if I would have sort of fought with him or argued with him, sir, you are wrong, and this is not the way to talk to someone, or sir, you are wrong. This is my career. I want to do an MBA. So how can you say that? You can't do things like that, and it doesn't make sense as well for a reasonable person. So this is the first step, I guess, towards the stress that people will face as a manager in their later lives. But yeah, I had a good lecture about that for 10 minutes. And the next thing was, he says, okay, leave it. I don't want to talk to you for now. Ma'am, you please discuss with him whatever you want to do. And that point of time, I was sure, okay, boss, uh, they're trying to break me down. It's better if I be honest to myself. हो गया तो ठीक है. If it doesn't happen, it's fine. Let's see. I'll manage. We'll see whatever happens next. At least now, whatever is they are asking, I should just give an answer and go through this. So ma'am unmutes her mic, and ma'am's first question is, Abhishek, you're following the oil prices. I say, yes, ma'am, I'm following the general trend that it's increasing. She says, how many times has oil increased in Noida over the past 2 months? Tell me the prices increases over every week over the past 2 months. And this is something that we usually don't study about, or even when you're preparing for GK, you don't actually learn the prices of oil over the past 2 months, right? You just see that there's a general trend, or maybe it's risen to 105 or 110, and you get a rough idea, and then you try to relate it to world economics and country economics and the socio-political scenario across the world, this and that. You don't learn the numbers. You're not supposed to do that. And this is something which I had realized as well. Okay, she wants numbers. I don't have numbers. But what I did have was, I remembered somewhere around 2 months back, the price in my area was around 95 rupees. And at that day of interview, it was around 104 rupees. So this is something which I had been following every morning. So every morning of interviews in Bangalore and Calcutta as well. So I tell her, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I don't know the exact prices or the number of increases that has happened. But please let me try if you'd give me an opportunity to arrive at a number. And this is something which I've said in my Bangalore and Calcutta interview as well. Put up a fight, try to give an answer, and tell it to them very honestly that you don't know the exact number, but you are willing to put up a fight, you're willing to discuss on it. And she was sort of happy that at least I accepted, and then I'm trying to give her an estimate. So she says, okay, all right, take your time, let me know how you arrive at a number. And I tell her that 2 months back it was 95, right now it's 104, 19, that was 100, 104. And I believe every week, if the price is increasing by a rupee, like, this was just a rough estimate, because obviously some weeks it might increase by 2 rupees, some weeks it might increase by a couple of paisas, some weeks it might even reduce as well. I never knew. I hadn't followed the exact numbers. So I broke it down 8 weeks, 1 rupee per week, and then 8 rupees. So I'm guessing 103, say 95 to 103, something like that, I told her. And then she was sort of satisfied. She said, okay, you answered this statistical question. You answered this question without giving me actual numbers, but I want numbers. I will ask you another question. Just a day or two before my interview, the Uttar Pradesh election results had come out. So she asked me who won. It was a very easy question. I said Yogi ji won. And the next question comes up to me is, tell me the crime statistics for the past 5 years. And I'm like, crime statistics, ma'am? She says, yes, the actual numbers, what percentage of crime has reduced in each category. Now, what percentage reduction is one thing, talking about each category is another thing, and then collating those numbers over 5 years is a whole different thing. So I was unsure about the kind of categories that they might be asking about. Maybe it is murder, maybe it is car accidents, maybe it is carjacking or some petty theft or something like that. So she says, give me numbers. I'll only accept numbers on this. And I realized that nobody can give you numbers on this in a very reasonable way. And I realized that she's just testing my integrity. Maybe like this was a wild guess at that point of time. And I say, ma'am, I don't really know the numbers. She was like, you really don't know the numbers? And I say confidently, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't know the numbers. This is where another thing comes up. You have to be confident even if you don't know something. Like you have to accept that you don't know it. There's nothing you can do about it at that point of time. There's no point in bluffing ki, ma'am, 30% increase ho gaya, 30% decrease ho gaya, 20% decrease ho gaya. You can't say random numbers like that. You have to be very logical, very, very data backed. And I tell her, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't know the numbers. And she says, tell me, at least give me something. Like, tell me what has happened in Noida or Uttar Pradesh. So at that point of time, the ball was in my court. I dribbled it well. I had read about the Jewar airport. I had read about the toy park, the health park, which was coming up in the outer areas of Noida. That I had heard about a lot of tech companies planning to shift their headquarters here. Paytm had just made a statement that it might shift to Noida. It might, but I had those pointers. I went on them and I talked about on them for about 5 minutes continuously. I explained all of my thoughts and policies and everything. And she seemed to be happy at that. She seemed to be content. And that was the first time when I could see a bit of smile on her face. Because before that, it was all about an expression of disappointment. Then Sir comes up. Sir asks me about a couple of guesstimates. And mind you, they haven't asked about my internship experience. They haven't talked about my academics. They haven't talked about my projects. So they don't really, and they don't really know how well I know each thing or not. And this is something which I was also not prepared for very well. I had prepared my acads and interns for a conventional Ahmedabad interview. I hadn't prepared for something like this random. But you go with the flow. He asked me about some guesstimates, some number games, some number questions. And then he asks me about, okay, a very simple question he asks me. There are cars going across a highway. How will you find an average occupancy using a single gadget? Go from a very easy solution to a very complex one. And at that point of time, again, as I say, you have to ask for 20, 30 seconds if you're not clear about your thought process. Even if you are just ask them for 20, 30 minutes in subjective questions like this, so that you can gather your thoughts. There is a paper and a pen in front of you. If need be, just write it down. Just write down some pointers so that when you start speaking, you make some sense. It's not like you are just speaking anything that comes to your mind. There has to be a structure. There has to be an order. There has to be a logic to whatever you're saying. So, sir, I begin with a very basic answer. I say, sir, I'll install a red light and then I'll note down the number of people to find out the average occupancy on that highway, given stretch of highway on a given duration of time during a week. Says, okay, a bit more complex. I go with cameras, I go with machine learning valid drones, I go with thermal sensors, I go with sonar, I go with weights, like wave bridges on the highway to calculate the weight of humans in them. And finally, I end up with a GPS. So I say, okay, everybody has a phone these days. We can track the number of phones crossing that bridge because Google and Apple they send each and every data to their satellites, and it can be tracked very easily. Even a random person like us can do that. So I gave him this answer. And funnily enough, the reply was, "You don't know your stuff. These are very generic answers. We were expecting something different, but fine. We'll do we'll do with what we have." And I was pretty sure that this was all a part of stress interview. I didn't know the term of stress interview at that point of time, but I realized that in this concept they're trying to throw me off again and again, or maybe make me do some mistake, some error, and I should probably just stay calm and keep on smiling at the camera and be happy. They ended the whole interview with a question on how will you assess the gender wage gap between 100 lists of 100 companies in Noida, and they wanted me to go on it on a very first principles approach, and then in a very top down manner, and sort of create a pyramid in your head. And you start with, okay, companies, okay, which kind of companies, okay, what kind of management level are we looking at, okay, are we grouping according to the work X or the age group, gender, hourly rates, number of holidays, things like that. You just keep on increasing the web. And I did that. I had done a couple of questions like this during my preparation for Ahmedabad itself, because there were a couple of articles online wherein seniors had mentioned that they had been asked guesstimates and case studies. And it went well, I guess, because that was the only question in which both the interviewers were smiling at the end of it. And after about 35 minutes of the interview, uh, the female professor, I was still discussing with the male professor about gender wage gap and how I'm going to analyze it. And she abruptly unmutes her mic and she says, "Sir, I think we're done with this kid. Let him go." And she says this, and she's like, "Abhishek, there's a toffee in front of you. I said, "Yes, ma'am, there is. Just take it and have a good day." And one thing on this, a lot of people say that picking up a toffee is a sign that you have cleared the interview. Let me clear the air out. It is not. I have had friends. I have had friends who were asked to pick up a toffee and still they didn't clear the interview. And I have friends who weren't asked to pick up a toffee and yet they cleared it. So you can't sort of have a preconceived notion that your target throughout that 30-minute interview is a ball of toffee sitting in front of you, that if I have to take up a toffee. If I take up a toffee, I'm going to Ahmedabad. It's not like that. One thing. Second thing is, as soon as I picked up that toffee, I thanked them. I didn't stop to talk with the other panelists, other interviewees. I just came back home and I had a sense of relief that finally ABC, the Holy Trinity, all the interviews were done. Now it was not in my hand. So this is a sense of accomplishment that I felt at that point of time, that what I could do has been done. Now it's up to them if they like me, which I guess they did, because otherwise why would, so they like each and every person who's coming to give an interview. Otherwise, these professors, they are so busy people, they are so senior people, they won't take out the time to spend 30-40 minutes with you every day. So if they like you, they will interview you. So I was like, they already like me. I guess I wasn't rude, I wasn't aggressive, I wasn't defensive, I was honest. And even if I didn't know anything, I was very confident in telling them that, "Ma'am, I don't know this, but I can try to build a solution. I can try to reach to a solution." And at that point of time, I was very relieved that it's my job is done. The only thing to do is wait for the results. Probably someone would post something on a WhatsApp group of us, of my peers who were preparing for IIMs, and that the results are out, and then leave it to that date. So yeah, that was my Ahmedabad interview experience. And what I could gather from Ahmedabad interview is three important things. One, in my case, academics weren't a big issue. But in all the other cases of my friends, I had a peer group of around 9-10 people who had given Ahmedabad interview. Everybody were asked about their academics, probably because they were also freshers like me, irrespective of your background, even if you're from commerce or engineering. So be very thorough with your academics, especially in your majors. Like my major was computer science. I was very thorough in that. Surprisingly, they didn't ask any question, but if they had, I would have tried my best to answer them. So be very thorough about your academics for Ahmedabad. Second thing is, be very clear about the current affairs, in the sense that even if you don't know the numbers, you have a viewpoint on everything. So it might be very much fine if you're supporting Russia, if you were supporting Russia in the Ukraine versus Russia crisis. But for you to support Russia, you have to have some solid facts. It just can't be that you are impressed by Putin or the Russian order, and that's why it's the fanboy kind of thing. You have to have some reasons behind that, and you have to have a viewpoint. Another thing, you can't just sit in there and when they ask you, do you support this war, and you can't say I'm neutral with it. Like let it happen. I'm fine either ways. If it's being attacked, if it's not being attacked, you have to take a side, a very tactical side. Like it could be Ukraine, it could be Russia at that point of time. Nobody's going to judge you on that. They are only going to judge you that if you are picking up Russia, or if you are picking up Ukraine, what are your reasons, and do those reasons make any sort of sense? It might not align with their values. It might not align with your values. That's another thing. For example, there might be some random leftist versus right wing debates. There might be some news articles like that, but Again, you can't be a neutral spectator. You have to have a viewpoint and you have to present that in a very logical manner. And the third thing is you have to have some structured answers in Ahmedabad interview. So uh, after those 10 minutes of lecturing on computer science, I had started to maybe give answers in a very mixed up way. So they had asked me to express my viewpoints on a couple of things. And earlier in my previous interviews as well, in that interview as well, I used to give an answer in a very pointer manner, very detailed, in a very bullet pointed way. But after that 10-minute lecture, I was somewhat thrown off, due to which I was giving up answers in paragraphs instead of being in a very pointed system. So the interviewer himself interrupted me and he was a bit irritated as well, which was fine by his part as well. If I was an interviewer, I would be irritated as well. You can't give answers in a very paragraph nonsensical way. You have to have some sort of structure in your head and you have to be precise and logical about that. So how I think of it is, how I was preparing for this is, you have to have some points when you're speaking something or when you're presenting your views. And those points should, the basic skeleton should be clear in your head before you start speaking. Ask for time, ask for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute is good enough. They're not going to say anything or judge you on that. But unless you have a structure, don't present your views. It's better that if you keep quiet and then say, "Sir, give me some more time, please." So these are the three things from Ahmedabad's interview. And I wish you all a very best.